welcome everyone for the Noza Avenue Design Competition jury session. So happy to have these amazing people with me. We have Denise, Simon, Helmut, Sophia, Timmy, and actually Matthew is gonna give our comments a little bit outside this session. But awesome to have you, everyone here with us today. And to get started, if you could just tell who you are and like just tiny bit of what you do, and in also like what have been your connection to the metaverse or Web3 architecture as we're jumping into this cornerstone Nose Avenue competition session. So if Helmut, if you can get started.
Okay. So my name is Helmut Kinzer. I'm Associate Director at Zaha Hadid Architects. Started pre-millennium to work at Zaha's, and I've sort of progressed into private high-end residential with my physical real work. Maybe as a sort of an outlier to that, we started using immersive technologies as part of the design process, part of our communications and internal design evaluations. So it really started off with the kind of brick and mortar kind of feel. Obviously then given us some experimentation and further research. I mean, we've just come out of a EU-funded research for an immersive design platform, benefiting from kind of a networked environment, and applying that to our internal workflows and also our presentations for our commercial work. We have been getting into the metaverse as part of our experimentation. So we've been in the art space, we've done some experiments there, but also now talking to commercial interests to build metaverse and design virtual real estate. So this has been mostly our drivers. We're looking at cybernetic architecture, so we're not necessarily saying this is black and white, this is physically real, this is virtual, but we're looking at a whole bandwidth of different blends, project-specific blends that we can use. And yes, I think we are still in the very early stages of this new technology, this new domain, this new information space that we hope will catch on and also provide us with a better experience that we have in Web 2.0 currently, and the swamp that is the current internet. We've done some substantial research on that, and we're involved with technical partners to play our part in this, hopefully. And yeah, so we are also dealing with AI assist design and a whole back-end privacy, GDPR issues, safety issues that are involved. And yeah, I think this is a super interesting discussion, so we're looking forward.
Yeah, thank you so much. And maybe Simon, if you can tell a little bit from the Epic Games direction, how does this metaverse architecture is part of your like world? Oh, I think you're muted. So
can you hear me now?
Yes, perfectly.
Fantastic. Yep, so my name is Simon Blakeney. I'm a technical account manager at Epic Games. So I help out architectural customers with the technical adoption of the Epic tools, which includes Unreal Engine. And we're seeing lots of different experiments with the metaverse using our tools at the moment. We've seen the first NFT house sold for $500,000, powered by Unreal. We're seeing lots of fantastic work from Zaha Hadid with the metaverse cities, and also from yourselves with Cornerstone. So it's a really exciting space, and we see a lot of potential with the fluidity of designs and creativity that could be merged with real-time engines.
Awesome. And then Sophia.
Hello, and thank you for having me on, Mika. So I'm a mentor with Outlier Ventures, and officially, which is not written here, I'm also working on the ecosystem VD side with Flare. We're a leading layer one chain. My experience with the metaverse is less so artistic, more on the business side. So I've been advising very early stage metaverse projects, looking at different revenue models, social fi angles. So from the very early sort of Web3 metaverse days to now, where it's become more mature and we're seeing more leading institutions jump into space with bright ideas and more sort of concrete ideas. And yeah, I'm very looking forward to having this debate with my fellow jury members.
Yeah, and Denise.
Hello, everyone. My name is Denisa Sachenko. I'm the co-founder of the Point Labs with Timmy as well. Our company is at the intersection of engineering, design, art, and science. So we're trying to bridge all these industries together and bring into innovation and technology as well. I do have a traditional architectural background. I study in university, but in the past 5 years have been shifted towards more virtual platforms and actually metaverse constructions and stuff like that. So I'm really looking forward to discuss today everything.
Yeah, and Timmy.
Yeah, Timmy Giro here. I am an innovation leader at Volvo Cars and co-founder of the Point Labs together with Denisa, being pioneering a bit in the mixed reality space, especially focused on interaction and the effect of virtual content on cognition and the way we interact with machines. I'm not an architect by training. I'm super passionate about it and been lucky to work with Denise and trying to still and learn as much as possible. I'm focusing a lot on the function of spaces and again, how does that affect us psychologically, and then from a world building aspect, been working a lot together with Alex McDowell, like pioneer in that space and learning the technique of how do we build consistent systems. And it's not only the visual aesthetics, but also the function. How does that serve, how can you build different services and strong narratives that probably could solidify into cultural elements. And I do think we do need to solidify the digital space and metaverse culturally as a movement. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. And as we're gonna be entering, and we're gonna like, I know that everyone from the community, especially, would be wanting to start hearing already all the comments about their actual work, as there is more than 30 different submissions, and we're more than excited how many different people actually contributed to the competition and having so much creativity. As we are, before we jump into that one, we're still gonna be staying just a little bit on this area, like what is the metaverse architecture. And as the people who were doing their submissions, it was by these out of the box creativity, astonishing visuals, and metaverse native business ideas. And as we're going to be also putting that into the Noza Avenue, our main shopping street in the cornerstone. So we still have some 3D modeling to do, even though there's these awesome concepts. But before we start to all of the members of the jury have been are gonna be just we don't have time to go through all of the different submissions, but we're gonna be going a little bit about different one of these, like the favorite ones, like some of these that some members really liked, and something that caught their attention. But maybe just a little bit about that when thinking about that, when with the cornerstone, because for example there's a lot of submissions about the Noza energy, because Noza, which is the DNA of the whole island, it's the volcano, it's the life, energy, and knowledge in that DNA string of cornerstone. But now it would be kind of like when you're designing and thinking something for the metaverse, and and now when you have these different, like the different factors compared to the physical world. So I would love to actually maybe Denisa, if you could actually share a little bit, like you've been doing stuff for the physical architecture, you have been doing stuff for the metaverse architecture. Like, what are the biggest differences? What do you see there?
To be honest, no one prepares you for the huge gap between it. The first mistake that I've noticed when I started this journey was like to bring actual physical mistakes into the virtual space, which is not needed, especially because like we are starting like a fresh, clean space. So we are recreating everything, like the basics of it. Therefore, we don't need those. First of all, you need to think when you enter like in a virtual space, is it by computer, like PC, desktop? Is it by headset? Then you need to calculate, the space between the objects and everything, and the design itself changes naturally because of that. And then, of course, you have when it comes to polycounts. I'm sorry, but always the developers. You need to clean it and cut it as much as possible and the size of the model itself. So when you're 3D modeling, you're not only designing the space, but you need to take that in account. So it's not necessarily physical restrictions, but you do have certain restrictions when it comes to the actual technology itself right now. Of course, now you have with AI that we start seeing the 3D models coming in and everything. So hopefully we will see a direction into that, to having real time changes in the metaverse while you're inside and experiencing it and designing as well. But we still have a bit of time towards there.
Yeah, so it's definitely early there, and actually would love to build up from there towards you, Helmut. Actually, like you you with the Zaha Hadid, you are very known for making these visually astonishing physical world buildings. And how do you see that direction going when it's the metaverse, and then you have less limitations, more possibilities? Like, what are those virtual world wow factors that you see?
I think the transition clearly was a fluid one, or almost impossible to detect, right? I mean, I think, especially working with Zaha, I mean, her dreams were meant to be physically real, but extremely challenging to execute, but ultimately happening. And we're very privileged, very fortunate to be also involved in some of those that have actually made it into the real world. But I think in terms of the formal freedom of expression, I think there's very little convention that held us back or held her back. So I didn't feel like we made a massive, break in that sense. And also clearly when we started getting our hands on game engines, our design workflow was already pretty much ready for us to just make that a tiny little leap. But then clearly the poly count started coming in, right, and the frame rates. We've been at it for 50 almost years, so I think we are fairly confident that we have the capacity to really make that transition. But also looking back into physical architecture, again, what are the teachings from that, and having a networked global audience, right, at any given moment, able to access those and share those spaces, I think is a tremendous moment for us. Now, that also obviously brings back the question, why are we doing this? Why are we the ones doing it? And what is the monopoly? What is agency, right? And also, what is the driver behind it? I mean, I think Sophia, it would be interesting to share notes on what actually makes these financially viable, because so far, and to be honest, I'm not the all-knowing creature, but I think most of the projects are still extremely subsidized and not self-propelling and perpetuating. And I think this is not the Web 2 yet. So I still think we need to learn a lot of more interesting things about how this becomes a secondary spatial web and reality for all of us, right? And for culture to emerge, etc. So I think that's maybe one of the things. Clearly, when I look at our small endeavors, clearly formally I don't see any big breaks. I think we are very comfortable with challenging space and creating space for these new environments. But of course, when Denisa, when you say we're repeating our mistakes, it's kind of funny that we also depend on those things that we, in our embodied knowledge and in our sort of identities that we want to need in order to realize space, right? To identify space. So if I see cladding and seams, right, where you think, okay, actually I don't really need those, but I need those to identify exterior, interior, right? And I think there are so many questions that we still need to learn. And then what is up, what is down. I think clearly from a semantic level, from a very kind of deep down ingrained human understanding of our environments, there is stuff that we will carry over, no question. So I think this is sort of the chemistry that we're in, and I think the blank slate is great. The big black electronic digital void that we need to refill with rational thoughts and constructs. I think this is the fascinating part for me. And I think program, functionality, access, connectivity, all these things, what is the remainder of culture that we need to translate out into these new worlds? I think there's a fantastic amount of bandwidth there. So, and I'm really excited to see what's there. I mean, I've looked at some of the projects, and clearly I think there's sort of a category where we say, okay, I need social spaces, I need communication, I need meeting spaces, like casual meeting spaces where I can run into people, exchange, communicate. And they are sort of not conventional, but I think they're necessary. And then there are some spaces that look at connectivity out into the physically real, looking at health, looking at, things that we need as biological beings. I thought that this was also really quite interesting. And there are some really funny ones. I think the portal ones I really like. I mean, I think 22 was kind of cool, right? I mean, you're in this sort of, I don't know, I didn't really understand the context of the project. So you have the same side or the similar side, but I like that you have this sort of hidden thing, right? And then you go in and then there's a completely different space. I quite think this is sort of quite challenging. That's something you would find very difficult in the real world, unless you have endless amounts of money.
Yeah, yeah. But I know it would be exciting actually to and there's like so much creativity, and this was something that kind of like stretched also my brain, and we'll be jumping into these even more. But now I actually have a hard choice to make. That should it be towards the polygons or business? Like there is now, but we actually are gonna go for business first, because like from that Helmut, you were discussing like having these different things.
Maybe before I end up on business and pixels, I think from a formal perspective, I clearly see there is a level of freedom of expression, right? Where I would say this is really about matter of taste, right? Where I say, okay, this is actually the big potential of this space, that it can be extremely dynamic, but also extremely highly identifiable, right? And individualized. So I could sense there is some sort of cyberpunk theme going on, and then I can sense that there is some very sort of cartoonish looking thing, cel-shaded thing. And I'm really curious about how this will come together. I mean, can it be also compartmentalized, that you share certain styles, certain realities with one another? They don't have to be all in your face, shared, forced shared, right? I mean, that's something I find also another interesting aspect from a formal point of view. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's awesome, and maybe from that, like a little bit about the business, and maybe Sophia, like you have seen different metaverse projects, going and coming and going, and you've been probably seeing the good and the bad of it. But like some things, when you think about metaverse business, where it's not anymore as we human beings, as a physical beings, like going for a coffee itself, it's not a necessity, because as a virtual being, we don't maybe need that espresso shot to boost our energy levels. But if like the cool stuff has been the Noza, because which is giving also the energy boost for our avatars, the dreamer avatars in the cornerstone, so people been going around that. But it would be fun to just generic, not even yet jumping so deep into these ones. That what have been some of the that you believe that in the business sense in the metaverse, what are those like the really that you believe that are going to be big things?
I think it's always been sort of a challenge to address Web3 metaverses, in the sense where when speculation is sort of when speculation enters the chat, then it becomes a bit nebulous, right? The focus goes towards tokenomics, how do I sell all these NFTs, and less so about the experience itself. If we want to look at the big metaverses, right? I mean, for me, it's Roblox, Fortnite, and they don't necessarily have the speculation elements that we see right now. Currently in the space, the metaverse that has sold the most amount of NFTs has a voxelated look. So it's not necessarily about being photorealistic, although that does sort of mimic what I think people have in their minds when they think of a metaverse, right? Like this sort of very realistic experience. On the business end, I think it's really about fine-tuning the energy that you bring towards creating and catering this experience while also having those financial elements. So it's really a balance, I would say, because once community is sort of brought, in the center, they have demands in terms of, for example, if there's a token involved. So like there is that pressure to sort of focus more on the financial side, and that can take away from the experience. I think having said that, this model is very much in its infancy. So we're seeing a lot of R&D. I think it's way too early to sort of kind of trench in with a judgment on, if it's going well or going bad. I remember, Mika, when I first saw Cornerstone, I was completely blown away. And you guys went off to have a very successful NFT collection. But I think this is one of those really rare cases where that financial model is very well balanced with the experience. But I would say, obviously, the goal is to have longevity in the space beyond one quick activation. So I would encourage sort of, honing into your community, but also respecting the experience that you're creating.
Yeah, and in the business wise, was there any of these submissions? So maybe we also already enter a little bit there. Sorry, Denise, you didn't get to, but Helmut kind of like opened the Pandora's box. So like Sophia, so Denise, you're gonna get your favorites in as well. But Sophia, was there like from the business perspective, was there any that you found like, okay, this was fun, this was interesting, and like maybe it doesn't need to be the unicorn thing, but like what was fun or interesting for you, like if you can like tell number that caught your eye and attention.
Specifically with these submissions or in general?
Yeah, these submissions.
Oh, these submissions. There was one that I really liked. It was, good God, I don't have the actual number right now. Yes, so it's the fragment timepiece. Mm-hmm. That one really caught my attention because right before this call, I was kind of alluding to, I'm looking for designs that really go with the Cornerstone environment so that it's not sort of like an off piece. And I absolutely loved this design. And also from a timepiece standpoint, we're seeing sort of like very early activations because of the demographic of the Web3 space, I would say. Basically mostly male space. I think this is sort of a use case that makes sense with the current demographic. Also, there's been like a lot of loyalty programs that I've noticed, especially within the timepiece world. So I think that could be a really good fit with Cornerstone and bringing new customers.
Yeah.
But yes, absolutely love this one.
Yeah, and I think something like also when I saw this one, it was like, okay, now there is some decisions to be made because now the suggestion of this concept is that to slow down the time, so it actually goes into the actual main rules of the whole world that, okay, do we allow this? And this has been something so amazing about getting these submissions in. It's like, okay, it like some decision making there that needs to be done. But then maybe Simon, like talking about polygons and all that and how things actually, because we're building it with Unreal Engine and that's been our tool for at least a decade now for things, and Cornerstone when we started building it was, of course, it was Unreal. So like when thinking about these type of things, and especially now with the these AI tools give a lot of freedom to design and concept different things around, but then when it's the time to put it in Unreal Engine, like what would be something that you consider important in that process?
Okay, so there's many different ways that you can use AI to create models from scratch. We also see a very huge interest in Gaussian splatting and other capture techniques on large scale environments. And I think that really complements a lot of the tools that we have internally as well. So we have something called the procedural content generation tools. And it could be that you're utilizing the AI generated models and then populating those on a mass scale. So it could be that you have a landscape that's automatically generated by various variables, and then you're populating that scene with different biomes that you've created through AI tools. I think there's lots of potential there for so many different creative scopes. I just want to go on to one that I really like, actually, and that's Tonic, which is number 33. So I think it's the last one on the list. That one? The one after that. So is it?
Yes.
So I really like this because one way that Unreal Engine's being used quite a lot these days is for live broadcast applications. We see lots of concerts, live concerts, for instance, being driven by our tools. And it's a really nice play here. I think that if you had that collaborative space, you had people coming into the environment, maybe controlling various aspects of the architecture individually. So the whole thing is almost alive and dynamic every time that you visit. I think things like that are very hard to imagine in anywhere else than a place like this.
Yeah. No, this is really cool, and of course it's gonna require some serious Noza energy that people need to even get through their Web3 through the companions and the yields and all that. So that's kind of like blended in. So, but it's really cool. And maybe Timmy, like, how do you think, like, take us a little bit like deep down there, like when you think about the metaverse, and when you consider like what is like the a little bit of the essence of that, when you're thinking about something that people would be spending significant time in the metaverse, what is required there to, like, in that design?
I do believe also that the space and environment itself should be like a fertile soil for new narratives, or like a bit of a storytelling, but that you could crowdsource it from the community, something, right? Otherwise, you will get cognitive dissonance, as I got when I went to London during COVID, or New York, right? You enter that space and you have that unsettling feeling because it's empty and you feel that it should be filled with people, right? And a lot of these images that I saw, or proposals, are like kind of empty. And I think there should be few elements that kind of help us drive a narrative together in a social, with certain functions and actions that would drive, our behavior there. One example, I mean, of course, I like fragments a lot because I like to play with the time scale, and probably one of my favorite game core mechanics is like from Superhot, the VR game, where I can slow down the time as I please. And I think in this one, that would be a really interesting aspect because it's not something we can replicate in reality, right? And if it slows down the time for me, does it slow down for the ones in my community or closer to my circle, or the whole world slows down, right? And that would be interesting. Like, how much would people like to be disturbed in that way, right? Or then another one would have been, I think, called Doze. I think this one was 20, number 20.
Yeah.
Yeah. About kind of like dream catching, right? I'm a big fan of that. Like, again, how do we have collective imaginated futures, or like that we're able to share certain dreams, similar in the mechanics of what Lucas Risotto did with Where Thoughts Go, right? People would record their fears and so on, and then they're released in the space. And when you interact with them, you release them and they disappear. I think similar with like you're able to share your wildest dreams, or people that have broken dreams and they need a bit to build on that with the community narrative, and how also the Noza has this healing effect in a way, right? Like it's able to take the good out of you, not only nightmares. Even though environment looks Nordic, and some of the environments I saw a bit dystopic or has this feeling. I think the aspect of being able to play with the dream and the physical space would be an interesting one.
Maybe to add to this, I really also very much like this project, the idea of the kind of collective imagination and residual kind of dreaming. I mean, Friedrich Kiesler was a good proponent. I'm not 100% sure about the architectural envelope. I wonder if that should not be something dynamic that could respond to whatever accumulation.
Yeah, there's
probably was reference from Inception, like the spinning.
yeah, it's and it's interesting, and also like how do you think about actual whole thing about like okay you have the cornerstone map, which is a little bit of the menu or something, and then you get to enter these different worlds and submerge yourself into these next ones, and there you can build the entire world, and just like Inception, going in layer to layer. uh, but yeah, like maybe I promised you, Denise, that you're gonna be also able to get yours, because we kind of like skipped through all the already fast. So maybe like if you could say one that you really liked, and what was like catching your attention on it.
Well, everyone's kind of likings, I was around them as well, so I kind of spot them, especially the Dose one. But as Helmut said, like the envelope is not necessarily what I would imagine for Cornerstone specifically. Especially how we are looking like Nordic style of design and everything. We are looking a bit maybe angular, clean cuts, kind of, very simplistic ways of looking at it. But when it comes to business ideas, I did like a lot the idea of going on mental health and psychedelics.
Which number was that?
So I'm kind of like in between two. So it was number 10 and 12. I did like the 10 is a mind journey. Nice playful name. Which I kind of, I liked the design and the simplicity of it, and how it's the idea of the wellness center. But in the same time, you had on 12 the psychedelic robots.
Robots. Bots. Yeah.
The idea behind it, I liked it. The design specifically, I wouldn't think it's appropriate for Cornerstone, but the idea behind it, I really like a lot. So I think it could be very like a merging between them two.
Yep. Maybe the companions. Bunny is the companions.
Especially, yeah, that's what I was thinking, because you have the companions and you can go through this, like, you would have like a shaman, which is actually the companion, to go through the journey of self-discovery with yourself. And there's so many, like they've been a few studies now about mental health and metaverse, and how we can kind of support this for everyone to collectively get in touch with that. Because a lot of people are ashamed, first of all, are scared, they don't know how. There are not enough practitioners in real life to actually stay and help you. So why not somehow think about this as an opportunity to discover that? And, I see Cornerstone as the island of self-discoverance, right? So how can we get to that stage together, and how can we put it through? So it's something there. I really think it could be a very good business model for it.
Maybe Helmut, do you have some other one that you liked?
So, I mean, obviously, I really randomly picked my first one. I think another extreme version of this kind of translocation or dislocation, whatever you call it, is the number six, the portals. It's almost a non-place. I imagine it to be almost like a place that is just a lot of places that are interconnected, which is, again, something I think physically impossible, but also interesting. So you would have almost like a curated collection of spaces, and that curation of spaces could be tailored to an individual, AI assisted maybe. The other one was the kind of sleeping pod, and I've been trying to find the number. It's kind of health meditation related. And I thought it was really simple, just an individual kind of space where you would have a guided session or meditation, etc. I thought it was very sweet. And yes, what you said clearly with the mind journey, I think there's sort of an argument there that ultimately informs the collective space, the architecture, right? Because there is a reason why you would have that space where you would have clients, customers coming in and then having them to be cared for by a program. I'm not 100% convinced if, when we say, okay, there is a collective space, what is the need for it? What is the commercial argument for it? So I think this could be a good proposition, also dealing with the calming, soothing, open space that most of the people that will be users like us not have. So I think, yeah, there's definitely, it's also a nice piece of design, I have to say.
Yeah.
I agree. Great. I really like challenging these spaces. So, clearly, I think the dream space for me would be a far more radical experiment, right? You're not lying down, experiencing or consuming something. You should be ultimately the agent. You should be ultimately having the ability to create and respond to something that's happening in your dream state, right? I think maybe that's really something I find it comes in worth more exploring.
Awesome. Yeah. Maybe Sophia, was there some other one you really liked?
I feel like the jury members have said some really interesting things. So to me, you were saying earlier something that really caught my attention, which was that you essentially enter these experiences to be able to experience things that you can't experience in the real world. And because Cornerstone is very sort of photorealistic, having that balance of being able to do something that you can't necessarily do. So whether that's time traveling or going back in time, but then also Helmut, just kind of going back to that sensorial experience of, can the metaverse be used for things like mental health, and finding a zone of tranquility where it's not necessarily gameplay action, but really using it as part of your daily needs, like meditation, just being in a very quiet place. Let's say you have a very messy apartment, then you finally enter this sort of holistic utopia where it's very sort of tranquil. And then if paired with sort of the right sort of hardware, depending, is this a VR headset? In the future, can we have experiences where we can completely cancel out noise? We can now, right? But just pairing all those things together, I feel the idea itself is simple. And so I'm going to second Helmut on this decision. I really like number 10. And I also think Lisa chose this one as well.
Physical Internet of Things equipment. There's the big spinning sports equipment manufacturing, right? And you could actually have a part that mirrors some of those interfaces, and helps assist also with sensorics. The mixed reality aspects of it, I think, would be a very interesting proposition, I think, and it'd be very helpful. I think that's also the selling point, isn't it? That, gathering and communicating and bumping into one another, exchanging information, meeting your fellow contemporary. I think that's clearly a big driver, and that's why we have these chat spaces now. But I think beyond that, there must be something far more interesting and existential, I believe. And that's definitely one of them. I think mental health could be, for sure, assisted.
Yeah. What about if you think about just the visuals, if we do a fast, does someone have a hard stop right now?
I still have a few minutes.
Okay, yeah. So let's go quickly around that visually. If you just think that, if you just browse through, okay, what was okay, wow, this was my visually my favorite one. So if we just go fast round, maybe starting from Timmy, what was your visual favorite? Which number?
Number 8, I would say. White space.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, Simon.
Visually, number 13, Tranquility Grove.
Yes, nice. Very cool. Then Helmut.
I think 10 fits my current state, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Nice, Sophia.
Just visually, the one where I was like, wow, this is just gorgeous, was number 2.
Number 2. Nice. And then Denise.
Yeah, the same as the guys. We have the similar language. So 10 and 13 have been for me that actually visually,
Yeah.
especially because like I work so much with Midjourney and everything, and I know how hard it is to make the text prompt for that. So
That's a new
it's all for
criteria.
them.
Yeah, nice. And let's do just another round on because there was these like out of the box. Like what do you thought that was just like, okay, wow, I didn't thought about this. And if we just go in the same order, like Timmy, what was your favorite out of the box submission?
I would say fragment.
Which number was it? That was number. That was somewhere early. Fragment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Simon.
I really like Portals, and I have to say I really like the
Portals?
the bonsai.
Portals was which number?
Oh, sorry, one sec. So I really like number 6, Portals.
Yep.
And I really like number 4, Tiny Titans, because I like the idea that you might have an avatar in the metaverse which changes, the world's change, but if you can take something, a token of like a tree that grows over time, you can show how long you've been in the metaverse. It just speaks to me.
Yeah. Then Helmut, few out of the boxes.
Well, it is a bit cartoonish for me. I find it very difficult, right, to distinguish. I think clearly 10 is beautifully designed with very much in language, but I think 22 for me is sort of the hat trick. I think that's for me sort of the entry point into what we can do in this place. So you just have something almost nondescript, non-existent, and you can jump somewhere. And it's not an architectural space; it's pure experience. I like that, so maybe we'll leave it at that.
And it's a box, so yeah. Okay, so
a beautiful car design I saw recently in Los Angeles. It just looks like like a connection box for the telephone cables in the streetscape, and then with a few manipulations you can actually ride it away as a motorbike. I quite like that. So
nice.
Selfie.
And cool. Sophia, you're out of the box, 1 or 2.
You know, the more I think about it, the more I feel like it's going to be number 10 for me, just because if I think of all these different elements, but then also about Cornerstone specifically, so we have this Noza energy, right, where you go to kind of replenish that energy. I would see this fitting the narrative, right, where like you go to kind of replenish your energy, and then how does that support your character within this metaverse, right? And then sort of from a utility standpoint, I would see a lot of people, we all lead very busy lives. And then Cornerstone is just like, I want to be there already. I've been to Iceland, and then this is giving me, for sure Iceland vibes, but, wherever you live, wherever you are, no matter how cluttered your space is, just kind of having that tranquil environment. And then if we're able to get Noza energy from that, right, like that's still within the context and narrative of the metaverse and gameplay as well. So this really is, for me, the right product fit, but also very just imaginative. I love the design, as Helmut mentioned, very simple, but captivating. So yeah, this is my favorite.
Yeah, Denise, out of the box.
Oof. Yeah, everyone kind of covered similar, like we can see where it's going, and I'm pretty much the same. But yeah, with Mind Journey, I really liked it, but I was thinking about gameplay, like when it comes, like I love MOBA games, so when it comes to like real time, everything online, so you're thinking about stamina, right? So that's Noza. So you need to come in there and you need to like kind of like your character, right? That you have in there in the metaverse. So you need to have that source somewhere to go and replenish yourself with that. But in the same time, I was thinking a bit about the one that Timmy mentioned, those.
That was number.
That was number 20.
Yeah.
With the whole idea of the Ethereum Dream Imperium. Like, that's very personal because we have the Dream Incubator. So when I read this, I was like, oh my God, this is like coming out of our minds right now. But as I said, the concept behind it, I think is it kind of sticked there with me. Not necessarily on the design level, but the idea behind it, it's really good.
Nice. But yeah, as we are starting to like, I know that we could be talking about 3 hours here if it's so much fun and so much cool submissions. But we need to unfortunately end this session. But it was so awesome to have you guys contributing and telling about these things. So thankful. Big thank you for everyone from the jury, and like mentioned, we'll be with the community actually. So the jury members will be casting their votes as well, but then also the community will be, so together there's gonna be who's gonna be the winner. But thanks for the session and your time here and contribution. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks for having us.
Thank